Everything in that house looked completely normal. It wasn't. The danger had been building for 11 hours before anyone noticed, except for one of them. Dex had spent 6 years as a structural engineer. He understood load-bearing walls, tensile strength, failure points. He was, in the way that people with precise technical training often are, extremely confident in his ability to identify things that were wrong, which is exactly why what happened on a Sunday morning in March took him so completely apart. His daughter Penelope was 2 years and 4 months old. She had discovered windows sometime around her 18th month, the way light moved through them, the way the world outside existed on a different plane. She would stand at the living room window for long stretches, palms pressed flat against the glass, narrating to herself what she saw. A red car, a bird, a man with a hat. It was one of her favorite games, and Dex and his wife Rowan let her play it without interruption. Their Bullmastiff, Hector, was 4 years old and weighed 122 pounds. He was not an excitable dog. He was the opposite of excitable. Steady, low energy. The kind of dog that chose one spot in a room and stayed there. He had never once inserted himself between Penelope and anything. He kept his distance with toddlers the way old men keep their distance from loud music. Respectful, deliberate, uninterested. Until that Sunday, Penelope woke from her morning nap and went directly for the window the way she always did. Dex was in the kitchen. He heard her padding down the hall and heard the soft thud of her palms against the glass. Normal. All of it exactly the way Sunday mornings were supposed to sound. Then he heard Hector move. The dog came from the back of the house at something faster than his usual walk, not running, but with a purposefulness that Dex registered without immediately understanding. He heard Hector's nails on the hardwood, then a sound he had never heard before. A low, sustained vocalization, not a growl, more like a pressure escaping through a nearly closed mouth. Then Penelope started crying. Dex came around the corner. Hector had positioned his body sideways between Penelope and the window, a wall of brindle and fawn. 122 pounds of dog standing broadside in front of a 2-year-old girl, making that sustained, low sound. Penelope was pushing against his flank with both hands, trying to get past him, crying in the particular way of a toddler who has been denied something she doesn't understand she can't have. Dex's first read was territorial behavior. His second read was resource guarding. The window is territory. He had read about this. He moved toward them. Get away from her, Heck. Hector looked at him, not with the loose appeasement expression of a dog being corrected. Something else, flat and focused, and directed toward the window. He didn't move. Rowan came in from the bedroom. She saw the dog blocking their daughter from the window, saw Penelope's face wet with crying, and her reaction was the same as Dex's. Immediate alarm, professional certainty. She was a veterinary technician. She knew what redirected aggression looked like. She knew how quickly large dogs could escalate when they were resource guarding around toddlers. He needs to go outside, she said. Right now. They put Hector in the backyard. He did not react well to this. He barked. Not his usual single declarative bark, but something continuous and without pause, directed at the back door. Penelope, freed from the blockade, went directly back to her window. She pressed her palms against the glass and went quiet. 20 minutes later, she complained her head hurt. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Dex had a headache too. He had assumed it was the sleep deficit of having a 2-year-old. Rowan said her vision felt slightly wrong, a faint blurring at the edges that she attributed to screen time the night before. They made coffee. Penelope sat at the kitchen table and did not finish her toast. She pressed her fingers to her temples. Rowan said it first. "This is weird. We're all headachy." She said it as an observation, not an alert. It took another 6 minutes, and Hector's continued barking from the backyard. Before the idea arrived, Dex went to the basement. The furnace was a 2009 unit, gas-fired heat exchanger model. The heat exchanger was cracked along its secondary fold, a fracture approximately 4 centimeters long that had been propagating since November. Carbon monoxide had been leaking into the supply air since approximately 11 the night before. The detector on the first floor had a battery that had been replaced in September. The battery was dead. The detector had been silent through all of it. They were outside in under 2 minutes. The fire department confirmed CO levels in the living room at 142 parts per million. The window Penelope had been standing at was adjacent to the primary supply vent. The air coming through the vent at floor level, where a 2-year-old child stands when she presses her palms against glass, was the most concentrated in the house. Hector had been standing in that air for the full 11 hours. His sense sensitivity had flagged the chemical anomaly hours before any human in the house registered a symptom. Captain Iris Delacroix, who ran the scene response, told them that CO fatalities in small children happen faster than adults because of relative lung volume. A 2-year-old standing at a contaminated vent for another 30 to 40 minutes would have moved from symptomatic to critical. Has your dog ever done something you couldn't explain until you finally understood what he was protecting you from? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The furnace was replaced. New detectors went into every room. Hector came back inside that evening and went immediately to the living room. He stood at the window for a long moment, the same spot he had been blocking, and then turned away from it and lay down across the room. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Penelope still plays her window game. She still presses her palms against the glass and narrates the red cars and the birds and the men with hats. Hector still keeps his usual distance, but some evenings when the light changes and Penelope drifts toward that corner of the room, the old dog lifts his head from his spot and watches her until she moves away from it. He knows something about that window that no one else in the house knows in the same way. He still watches. He will always watch. What did your dog do that you dismissed as bad behavior until you understood it wasn't? The next story involves a husky who refused to let a toddler eat breakfast, and the reason still surprises the doctors who treated her.